Gina DeLuca here. Okay, so, I've kind of been away for a bit. I'm still posting here and there, but I was really busy over the summer with some music stuff that is slowing down now because it is the slow season musically. And I am going to be really dedicating more time to painting again. But, this thing happens sometimes, you lose your mojo, and that kind of happened. For a while, I lost my mojo for music, and I didn't play for a while, and then I got back to the music, and right when I was kind of losing my mojo for painting. Anybody who's been an artist for a long time goes through this. First, my advice for that is have more than one interest, more than one hobby. So if you do burn out on one thing, you have some other creative outlet. That's why most artists dabble in lots of different kinds of mediums. Second, to get your mojo back, do what you know, do what you're comfortable with. I could come in and try something that I haven't tried before that is interesting to me, but if that doesn't go very well, it kind of is a little bit defeating, right? So do what you know. I know straight pours. Even when I can anticipate when something might not go right, I know it very well. I'm very comfortable with it. So you might be seeing some straight pours coming up, but I do have some stuff coming down the pike that I want to try that I think y'all will find interesting. So I hope that you click that subscribe button or click the bell to receive notifications when I am posting the new stuff. But today, sorry for all that talking, but I thought it was good to get that out of the way because I know some of y'all have been asking where have I been, why haven't I been posting? That is why, but I am really going to give myself a swift kick in the booty and get back to it. So here we go. I'm going to be doing a spiral straight pour. The colors that I'm using, I have Amsterdam Acrylic in Greenish Blue. This is a really beautiful color. DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in Emerald. The DecoArt Americana Decor Satin Enamels in Pure White. And the DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in 24 karat gold. The Pure White Satin Enamel has been mixed with Liquitex Basics Titanium White. It is half satin enamel, half Liquitex Titanium White. And then those paints are mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. So, for instance, if I had a 1/2 ounce of the satin enamel, I would have a 1/2 ounce of the titanium white. That gives me 1 ounce of paint in total. And then 2 parts Floetrol, so 2 ounces of Floetrol to the 1 ounce of paint. That's what we're talking here. So, you can do 3 parts Floetrol as well. That's still going to work. I know people who do a much higher ratio. Experiment and see what works for you. I find that the 2-to-1 works very well for me. So does the 3-to-1. So I add the Floetrol to the paint, and then I thin it with, usually I use a mixture of 90% water, 10% Floetrol, but I need to make a new mix. So today I just used water until I got the consistency that I'm looking for, which is, this is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears quickly. When you are using metallics, there is mica in there, so you don't want to go too thin. It's almost like a plus 0.5, right? So normally if it was a 2 on a less, it's probably going to be really hard to see the difference. Because there's no mica in this, it actually flows a little better. And so it can be deceiving where this is a 2, but if this were a paint without mica in it, this would be a 2, but it looks like a 2.5 because of the mica. That is a thing that will come to you over time. It is like just the slightest bit of difference, but if you go too thin with the paints, the metallic paints with the mica in it, it will spread. The mica will spread across the top, which can be a cool effect if that's what you want. But if you want all of the mica to stay within the cells, you have to go just a hair thicker than you would if it were a non-metallic paint. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration card? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube. This is the picture of the painting in that particular video. This box contains a tip for this particular technique, and here at the bottom I have the color palette that is used in that particular painting. And then these two boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use some of the colors, all of the colors, mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put a bit of my paint. This is going to be the background color. This will be the color that doesn't sell. All of these should sell, the green was kind of thick. It's been open for a while. That may not sell. The gold, that looked like it should be a good sell maker. You can tell there's a little bit of some kind of liquidy substance that sits on top of the paint when it's been sitting for a while. And if you get to the point where you don't have that, sometimes it doesn't sell as well as it would if it were fresh and you saw that on top. Whatever that substance is, I feel like that is the magic. So the green did not have that on top, so we will see what happens. The white did not have that, but I've used it recently, so that is not the best indicator. And the gold did have it, so that should be fine. I am laying down a base coat because I want my paints to slide around evenly. Something has to stick to the canvas first, right? So if you put your pour puddle down first, then as you are stretching the paints, it will be rolling over top of itself, and then you kind of lose some of the magic that can happen on the edges. Another reason that I use the same color base coat as I do background is because it gives me the option of doing negative space, having some negative space if there was something super cool happening on the edges. I have that as an option. But also another reason to use the same color base coat as something that is going to be prominent in your painting. Sometimes you get bubbles in your base coat, and those bubbles will pop up through your poured puddle. And if you're using a color that is not in your painting, it's going to stand out. They're going to be these tiny little cells. So if I weren't using white in this and I used a white background, I could wind up with little tiny white cells that just don't belong in that painting because it's nowhere else in the color palette. So that is why I choose a color that works in the painting, just in case. I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. It's a blessing and a curse. All right, my base coat is down. I have reserved a bit of that color in that cup to go on top of these colors. So I'm going to check the consistency before I put it in the cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. Even if you checked it 5 minutes ago, check it again. I'm going to start with the green, pouring from up high. I want these paints to sink and churn and blend. If you don't want that, if you don't want them to do that, just layer them gently. But I want these to kind of blend together. Sometimes they just thicken up when they sit. Sometimes all you need to do is just give it another stir. Sometimes you need to add a bit more of your thinning liquid, whatever that may be. That just needed a stir. Okay, up high. If you are uncomfortable with pouring paint from this high up, you're worried you're going to miss the cup, you can practice in your sink with water. Easy peasy. You'll get used to the feel of it. I used to be a bartender, so that is a natural motion for me. Okay, again, from up high. So what often happens, the last color that I put in, which is the gold, a bit of that will end up at the bottom of my cup. Some folks have said they haven't been able to make that happen. One thing I will say is that this cup is wider than it is tall. So this is like a tall, thin cup. This is a wider, more shallow cup. That may help to get it to sink. If your cup is very tall and thin, it might be too deep to make it to the bottom. I love what is happening already here. Just this blending of colors. We'll see what happens. That gold and green with this blue is amazing. We'll see what happens with the white. And I'm going to try to cover up as much as I can. The DecoArt paints are matte in comparison to these Amsterdam paints. And the matte paints, when they are up next to a glossier paint, the matte paints have a hydrophobic effect and they will push the matte paints away. Or, sorry, the matte paints will push the glossy paint away. That is what is giving us cells in this case. Sometimes you get cells from the Rayleigh-Taylor instability, which is more about different densities of paint. That is not really what's happening here. This is a hydrophobic effect. There are 2 cat hairs in the shape of an X. Satchmo's like, I marked the spot. So I'm popping the bubbles in the base coat. You can see that green is trying to sell. I don't think we're going to have a problem there. Didn't see the magic liquid on top, but it is obviously doing its thing. I'm contemplating shaving my cats because it seems to be snowing cat hair at the moment. Okay, I am going to pour. First, I'm going to make sure that my canvas is centered on this spinner as much as possible. I am going to pour quickly, spin slowly, and I'm going to go in a clockwise manner and trying to stay in the center as much as possible. I don't want to do a lot of spins because then it's just going to look like a ring pour. It's not going to have as much of a spiral effect. This technique gives you a Fibonacci spiral in the center. I just saw a hunk of something fall out. I don't like that at all. But the Fibonacci is like the magic ratio. It's all over nature. The closer I get to the end of the cup, the closer I will get to the canvas. That will give me more control. And now I'm close to the end. I'm hoping for some of that gold to show up. I'm going to spin slower. Ah, I see gold, I see gold. And so once I get to that color at the bottom, in this case the gold, I tried to do 1.5 turns, which is the Fibonacci 1 to 1.5. Just a wee bit more. Okay, woo! All right, so far so good. Going the center of the weight of the paint. This canvas is leveled to the table, but the spinner is not really leveled. So what is important to me is that this center is in the center, regardless of what happens elsewhere. For this particular piece, for how I want this to come out, that is what I'm paying attention to. It is really looking like a nautilus. That's cool. Okay, so now I'm popping bubbles in my pour puddle. I'm going to keep this moving because it's not level. I don't want it to run off of one side. So just keep it moving slowly. So as I'm popping these bubbles, it is bringing up some of the paint that is lying underneath. And what is happening then is the paint that's lying underneath are these cell makers. And as they sit, they spread because of that hydrophobic effect. And I could stretch this as soon as I pour it. I will get cells. They will be what I call pop-up cells. Some people call them pearl cells, but they're relatively uniform in size and shape-ish. But if I allow those cells to come up first and then I stretch them, it gets a really cool 3D effect. I call them Boulder cells because they look like big rocks. The very 3D effect to them. This is where patience is really, really helpful. I'm going to take my pouring cup and just sit it on its side for a minute here, just in case I need a little extra juice on the corners. That can happen. Just help it slide a little easier. But I definitely have enough paint. But it never hurts to have a little bit extra. Allowing this to sit allowing this paint puddle to percolate. Let these cells come up now. So I can stretch them out and get that super cool 3D effect. I know a lot of people fast forward through this part, both creators and viewers. Sometimes the creators fast forward through. That is fine. I want people to see just how long I actually let this sit, because I think it is helpful for other people when they are trying to scrape up the patience to just let the paint puddle percolate, do what it's going to do. Okay, well, we are loaded up with cells. I think we can start to give this a twirl. Let me make sure that my center is centered. That is kind of crucial here. I don't always want my focal point to be in the center, but when I'm doing these spirals, I do. I would rather the center be in the center and the rest of it kind of stretch out in a more oblong way. Okay. Now, we do not have to twirl quickly. That is not necessary. It will get there. If you have ever had a painting that was not level, then you know how much the paint can move over time. All right, so I am going to just, and this will all get spun off, but this is just going to help it slide around a little bit easier. Just adding a little bit of extra paint can help. As it sits, it can get a little bit of a skin. It can kind of thicken up a little bit. But also doing it this way, if you don't get full coverage on your corner, it'll still look okay. Just kind of go along with the grain of your pour, so to speak. And then you can also use some scrapings if you need them as it spins off. Okay, and another thing you can do to help it along, if I want it to come this way more, I will slide my canvas a bit in that direction, and then kind of like those merry-go-round things on little carousels on a playground. If you're in the center, you aren't getting pulled that much. If you are on the edge of those things, you can get flung off into outer space. So it's kind of that same concept, using the centrifugal force to your benefit, so I can direct the paints how I want. Leave it to me to find a way to turn accidental art into a thing that I must control. I'm just going to take some of these scrapings just for this corner here. It's having a little bit of a trouble there. A little bit on the sides here. Sometimes it's the side that's dry, and that is prohibiting the paint from sliding off as easily as you would want. So make sure that if you see resistance, you check your sides. That is precisely what is happening on these corners. And I think one more spin, and this is going to be golden. I'm just checking the centeredness again. Okay. I'm just doing a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. I like what's happening here. I don't want to lose that. I just want a slight bit more coverage on that corner. Maybe I can just doctor it up without losing more. Okay, that's it. Perfect. Good. Okay, I am going to pull this off of the spinner. I'm going to let this sit for a bit and see what it's going to do, and I will bring you in for a close-up back in a few. Okay, so here it is. I am very happy with this piece, how these colors blended. I love the contrasts that are going on. Some cool 3D cell action. Love some of the wispy stuff that's going on with the white. It's really hard to appreciate the metallics in on the camera. It doesn't really pick up the shimmer. But I'm very happy with these pieces. These cells here are not looking beautiful on the camera, but they are absolutely gorgeous. It's like the blending of the blue and the green and the gold. It's much prettier in person than how it is showing up on the screen. That's why I didn't want to lose those cells, because they were pretty cool looking. But there it is. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe. If you are subscribed, make sure you have clicked that bell so you receive the notifications when I put up new content. Check out the description box below for links to my affiliates, DecoArt being one of them. Get your hands on some of these amazing cell making paints. Go to that website, use the link, you can get a coupon code. But if you use that link and any of the other affiliate links, I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. So when you're doing your Black Friday shopping, use that link. Help a sister out. Doesn't cost you anything extra. Also in the description box, you will find links to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you will also find the link to our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. But yeah, there's some other links down in that description box that you might find helpful, links to other videos. But that is going to be it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.